Yeah, QT Marshall and his group.
The joke continues.
Came out to the ring. Yeah, QT Marshall walks into a bar, and the people say, "Get the fuck out of here."
The bar closed. Everyone fell asleep.
They said, "Can you please leave? We want to start happy hour."
QT Marshall walked into a bar. The bartender took a nap.
Anyway, he called out the Big Show, and out comes the Big Show with his new non-Big Show music. Well, it's not the Big Show. And the heels, there's 5 heels in the ring, and they just swarm him, because why wouldn't they? And he shoves them all off and punches QT and shit cans the other ones, because they're showing he's a giant. All right, if we have to see Big Show versus QT Marshall, this hadn't been bad so far. And then here comes Billy Gunn and his 2 sons, Austin Gunn and Colton Gunn, known as the Gunn Club. And they hit the ring and they back show up. You know, they're standing there with him, and now it's the 3 of them plus Big Show against the 5 or 6 heels or whatever. And there's the stare down, and then Billy Gunn just hauls off and hits the Big Show in his bad hip with a chair. Boom, and down he goes. And the announcer goes, "What the fuck?" And then he hits Show in the head. And within seconds, excrement has already, well, damn Billy Gunn and his scumbag sons. Within 5 seconds after he hit the guy with a chair, his sons have turned into scumbags in the eyes of and they didn't do anything. But we used to like these people, but now we don't. And why did they do that? We don't know. But now does QT's group have 9 people in it? Austin Gunn, Colton Gunn, Billy Gunn, as well as Somo, Koromato, Agogo, whatever the fuck, and the 2 other clowns that he's got tagging along. What is this?
I don't know why any of this is getting on TNT. It belongs on YouTube, despite the fact that it's the fucking Big Show who's a big star. QT Marshall.
And
I just don't think anyone gives a shit. And then the other thing is, if you thought the QT Big Show feud was bad, let's get Big Show and Billy Gunn and family in 2021. Are you kidding me?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. And then the Guns leave the ring, and QT and his guys get back in the ring, and they pick Big Show up and hold him up so that QT can give the Big Show a diamond cutter, and they leave Big Show laying. Do they honestly think that is going to get any type of want to see this heat on QT Marshall or anybody in that group? Or do they just think the people are going to be like, well, now Big Show's getting beat up by these fucking clowns?
I don't care who Paul Wight was going to work with at the pay-per-view, QT or someone else. This was not a good way to set it up. It means nothing. He's just wrestling a match against someone no one gives a shit about. And this, at the last minute, Billy Gunn. AEW superstar Billy Gunn turning on Paul Wight. No one cares. Out of all the things you could have done to have the AEW wrestling debut of the former Big Show, who is a star, this was a complete waste. Or put him in there with a young guy that could use the elevation of some sort.
Actually, not even that. No, Show is not at the point, nor does he need to be at the point where he's elevating young guys. He's not going to go in there and have a fucking
but not by losing
20-minute match.
That's what I want to say.
Winning or losing, working with.
I'm saying as a tag team partner. If you had him as someone like Darby's tag team partner,
I'll buy that.
Then it puts Darby over because he's standing on the apron with someone who's a young. That may not be the perfect fit, but you get my point.
Well, it's Darby Allin looks like one of Big Show's fucking toes.
And that's exactly what you want with a giant. You want someone who's tagging with him that's really small. Makes him look even bigger. He'll look gigantic in that AEW ring.
But I agree with a tag team match, yes. Young partner, help triumph, whatever. But for a single match, which is what they apparently were dead set on having, get a little fucking weasel or even a manager or somebody, and not the Brandon Cutlets or Michael Knock-It-Offs, but you have to have some little You know what? The first match for Big Show on pay-per-view, if they'd have done it right, would have been great to be against MJF. Because if MJF had been running that mouth with nobody shutting it up for about 6 or 8 months, and then finally he got wangled into a one-on-one confrontation with the Big Show, that's when that works. You bring the giant back to have a 6-minute match where he kicks a teetotal shit out of some little guy with a lot of heat. Then that might be an attraction. But just to have the Big Show return against basically a no-name person has no cachet in the wrestling business and has a group of guys that nobody's ever heard of, and now they're doing angles where they're getting heat on the Giant. Fuck. He don't need to be having good matches anymore at this stage of his career. He's valuable. The Big Show, once every year or so, you put him in a situation where he's in there for a short time and gets shit done. But I don't know what the fuck this is.
There are too many guys in AEW who are on the show. Whatever you want to do with anyone on YouTube, do whatever the fuck you want. There are too many people getting on the nationally televised show that don't belong. And it doesn't feel right. QT and his crew don't belong there. Matt Hardy and his crew don't belong there. There's just too many of these groups where it's not just one person.
What has Matt Hardy done to deserve this? They bring him in.
You want me to
they
answer
give
that?
him brain damage. They bash his face in last week. They injure him. They put him with mismatched and miscellaneous jobbers to go out and do the stupidest things that have been perpetrated. And what the fuck? I know that Nick Cage there for a while, he had to take any role that he was offered because he was in tax trouble, but how the mighty have fallen here.
And again, going back to just using them as the example. You mean to tell me Paul Wight doing all of this with Team Taz wouldn't have been better?
There you go. Anybody.
You could slide Team Taz into anything else that's happening in AEW with a faction, and it would automatically be better.
And it'd be better than what they're doing now. Anyway, Tony had an interview with Britt Baker and Reba and their new sidekick, Jamie, and Britt has signed a new contract. And boy, she's just rolling those promos off her tongue these days. Remember, I thought they were crazy, and they were actually crazy, when they put her out there the first week as a heel and just left her twisting in the wind, and it was so bad it was good, but I felt so bad for her. She got it. And she didn't take long, and now she's the golden voice of AEW. But then from the penthouse to the outhouse, Penelope Ford with Bunny took on Ty Conti. 12 minutes later, Officer Barbrady is with Thunder Rosa. And I thought I was safe because I said, okay, I've managed to skip past Penelope Ford and Ty Conti and the Bunny Rabbit. And I'm with Thunder Rosa. I'm in good hands here. And she says maybe 2 words, and here comes Vicky Guerrero, Nyla Rose, Jane Cargill, and the fake lawyer. And they proceeded to get into the most stagey, phony, awkward fight that I have ever seen on any professional wrestling program. This was embarrassing. Was it live? Because if it was pre-taped, they need to fire the producer unless he said, we can't show this. And somebody said, oh, yes, we can. Otherwise, he needs to be standing in the bread line. I can't believe that anybody that's been in wrestling more than 5 minutes would have not said, hey, we can't show this. Did you see it?
I watched it, yeah.
And then after they all beat Thunder Rosa up, then the rest of them looked at each other and just started talking to each other over the top of her body. And the cameraman's not doing anything, and nobody's running in, and she's just, Thunder Rosa's having to sell down there like she's had the shit kicked out of her while they're just having a discussion standing over the top of her. And even the announcers, everybody's left. And it's like the cameraman is under instructions. You're covering the war in Vietnam. Don't get involved. Just shoot what you see. And did I mention how fake every bit of physical activity looked leading up to this? The phony award winner goes to... I can't believe they aired it. Am I being too hard on it?
Maybe. I mean, it came out of that awful match. I don't know. The women's division is
what you saw. Just what you saw. Was that the phoniest looking shit that you've ever seen?
It was ridiculous. Thunder Rosa was there. She was about to cut a good promo, and all of a sudden she's surrounded from all sides without anyone noticing anything. That seemed to happen a lot.
But just the physical contact or lack of it, and just the stagey manner. It was like a sketch comedy show was doing a sketch about wrestling. And Thunder Rosa's so good. Anyway.
That's the problem. AEW legitimately has some really super talented women's wrestlers. Thunder Rosa. Britt Baker as a personality. In the ring, I think there's still...
She's better than a lot of
them there.
Yeah. Serena Deeb, she's got an injury, but she's off right now, but hopefully she'll be back soon.
You know, it'll be interesting to see how the next couple of years go. If they get some more really if a Charlotte Flair ends up there, if other really talented women end up there, you've got some good building blocks. You got some good foundation pieces there that you could put in the ring and have a good match.
Can you imagine if they had Charlotte Flair and Britt Baker? Those people would boo Charlotte Flair out of the building. They would love Britt Baker even more than they do already. They'd have some you'd be able to draw money with a women's match in this company with something like that. Not with the Japanese fetish objects. So that's where old Twinkle Toes, I'm sure, will throw his body in between any competent women wrestlers signing onto this roster, because it will further diminish his pet project, which is to get every outlaw girl who embarrasses the wrestling business in the country of Japan a job with an American billionaire.